My ex lied about being pregnant to trap me, until I secretly recorded everything and sent it to her parents. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and I thought I was about to start a family. Mia and I had one of those relationships that burn too bright. Passionate, magnetic, and messy as hell. We'd break up over the smallest things, her jealousy, my silence, then end up back together within days, like two addicts who couldn't quit each other. Everyone around me called it toxic, but I always told myself, love isn't perfect. Then one morning, my phone rang before sunrise. Her voice was shaking. "Can you come over, please?" I drove there half awake, heart pounding the entire way. When she opened the door, her eyes were red, her makeup smeared. She held up a pregnancy test with trembling hands. 2 pink lines. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at it. My brain went completely blank. All I could hear was her sobbing. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm so scared, something in me shifted. All the anger, the fights, the uncertainty, it just dissolved. I wrapped my arms around her and said, "We'll figure it out. You're not alone." She clung to me like I'd just saved her life. And maybe in that moment I believed I had. That night, I sat in my car outside her apartment long after she'd gone to sleep, staring at the dashboard. I wasn't ready to be a dad, not even close. But I told myself I'd step up. I'd stop running from responsibility. As the streetlights flickered and dawn started to break, I whispered to myself, maybe this is the universe forcing me to grow up. But deep down, a small voice I refused to hear was already asking, what if this isn't what it seems? The first few days after she told me felt surreal. Mia went from terrified to almost euphoric overnight. Suddenly, she was planning baby names, scrolling through nursery furniture and talking about moving in together. I told myself she was just nesting early, that the mood swings were normal. But something about the shift felt performative, like she'd gone from panic to control in a matter of hours. One night, I said gently, maybe we should schedule a doctor's appointment together, just to be sure everything's okay. She froze mid-bite and put her fork down. Do you not believe me? Her tone sliced through the air, calm but sharp. I backpedaled immediately. No, I just want to be involved. I want to help. Her lips twitched into a small smile, but her eyes stayed cold. I can handle it. You've got work. Don't stress yourself. From then on, she guarded every detail like a secret. Every time I asked how her appointment went, she'd give short answers. Everything's fine. Doctor says I'm healthy. Don't worry about it. But she never showed paperwork. Never let me come along, and yet she started monitoring me. She'd ask where I was, who I was with, why I didn't pick up her calls on the first ring. I brushed it off as hormones, but the calls grew constant. If I didn't answer, she'd send texts like, I can't believe you'd ignore me right now. Do you even care about our baby? I started feeling trapped, like every move I made had to be approved first. Still, I kept reminding myself, she's pregnant. Be patient, but the unease never left. Each time she said, our baby, something inside me twisted. A quiet, gnawing doubt I couldn't explain, and that doubt was about to find its first piece of evidence. A few weeks passed, and Mia's mood swings became impossible to predict. One minute, she was sweet, cooking my favorite pasta, resting her head on my shoulder while we watched TV, and the next, she'd explode over nothing. I once forgot to text her goodnight, and she sent me 12 messages in a row, ending with, You don't care about me or our baby. You're just pretending. I spent the next day apologizing like I'd committed a crime. That became our routine, her storming, me repairing. I thought that's what love meant. Endurance. Then came the first red flag I should have never ignored. I was folding laundry at her place when I noticed her pregnancy vitamins were actually just regular multivitamins. When I asked about it, she brushed me off, saying, They're basically the same thing. I nodded, pretending to believe her, but my stomach nodded. A few days later, I suggested we announce the pregnancy to our families. I thought maybe that would bring us closer, make things real. But Mia's face lit up too quickly, like she'd been waiting for me to say it. She started planning instantly. A dinner, decorations, even a printed ultrasound photo she said she'd get from her friend at the clinic. When I asked if we should wait for a doctor's confirmation, she pouted. "Why do you keep doubting me, Liam? Do you think I'd lie about something like this?" Her voice cracked on that last line and guilt hit me hard. I held her hand and said, "Of course not. I trust you." But that night as she slept, I stared at her phone on the nightstand, lighting up with notifications I wasn't supposed to see, and thought, then why does this trust feel like walking blindfolded toward a cliff? The dinner was supposed to be a celebration, the moment our families came together for something good. I told myself it would calm all the chaos, prove that this was real. But deep down, I already felt the tension before the night began. Mia went all out. White dress, soft curls, her makeup flawless. She even printed name cards for the table. "It's going to be perfect," she said, looping her arm through mine. I tried to smile, but something about her confidence unsettled me. She didn't look like someone scared about a life-changing surprise. She looked like someone directing a show. My parents arrived first, polite smiles, cautious questions. Mia's family followed soon after, all warmth and laughter. Then came the big moment. Mia stood up, clinking her glass with a fork, eyes glistening. "We have some amazing news," she announced. She pulled an ultrasound photo from her purse and held it up proudly. Gasps, cheers, hugs. Her mom burst into tears. My father shook my hand, saying, "You're going to be a great dad." But while everyone was lost in the moment, I couldn't stop staring at that photo. Something didn't add up. The corner where the patient's name should have been was blurred out. The date read 2 months before we even thought she was pregnant. I leaned in, trying to hide my confusion. Later that night, when I asked her quietly, "Hey, about that photo, why's the date off?" she laughed it off. "Oh, that? My friend just used an old machine. The timestamp's wrong. You overthink everything." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to silence the voice screaming inside me that said, "She's lying." As I lay in bed beside her that night, I replayed her smile, her performance, the blurred photo, and realized that maybe this wasn't a celebration at all. Maybe it was the start of something I wasn't supposed to see through. After that dinner, everything changed. Not between us, but around us. Suddenly, everyone had opinions about my future. Her mother called twice a day asking if I'd picked a ring yet. Her father dropped hints about apartments near their neighborhood, saying, "A child needs stability, son." Even my own parents, usually cautious, said things like, "Maybe this is your time to settle down." Mia soaked it all in like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. She'd post soft-focus pictures of coffee mugs and baby quotes on Instagram. When I asked if that wasn't a bit early, she said, "What, are you ashamed of us?" The guilt was constant. Every word, every pause was a test. And every time I hesitated, she turned colder. One evening, while we were watching TV, she leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "You know, engagement would make this real for everyone." I blinked. "Mia, we're still figuring things out. There's no rush." She sat up instantly. "No rush? You're acting like you don't even want this baby." Her voice cracked, eyes glistening. I froze. "That's not what I said." She turned away, muttering, "You'd leave me alone if you could. Just like your dad left your mom." That one hit hard. Too hard. She knew my father's absence was my sorest wound, and she weaponized it without blinking. I apologized again, promised I'd think about it. She smiled through tears, gripping my hand like she'd won. From that day, everything became conditional. She refused intimacy but demanded commitment. She controlled what I spent, what I posted, even who I spoke to. And when I tried to breathe, she'd whisper, "Don't forget, it's not just about you anymore." That night, staring at my reflection in the dark window, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her prisoner. It happened on a Thursday night. Quiet, uneventful, like any other. I was finishing up late at work when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It read, "Ask her about her appointment last week." It wasn't a doctor. My heart dropped. I stared at the message for minutes, debating if it was a prank. Then another text followed. "Check her messages. You deserve to know." I tried to push it out of my mind on the drive home, but the thought clawed at me. When I walked in, Mia was already in bed, phone charging by her side. Her breathing was steady, deep, rhythmic. I stood there, motionless, before finally reaching for the phone. My hands shook as I unlocked it. The first thing I saw was a message thread with someone named Dylan. My chest tightened. The most recent message was a selfie of him shirtless with the caption, "Can't believe he still thinks it's his." Above it, her reply, "He's too scared to question me. It's perfect." My legs gave out. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen until my vision blurred. My mind raced. Denial, confusion, rage, shame, all at once. She shifted in her sleep, murmuring something, and I snapped the phone shut, pretending to be calm. The next morning, I confronted her, voice trembling. "Who's Dylan?" She blinked, then laughed. "Wow, you're going through my phone now? That's controlling, Liam." "You're cheating on me," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. She started crying instantly. "I can't believe you'd accuse me while I'm pregnant." "You're disgusting." And somehow she flipped it. Within minutes, I was the one apologizing. But as she hugged me, whispering, "Don't ever doubt me again," I knew one thing for certain. I would never trust her words again. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message. "He still thinks it's his." The words repeated like an echo I couldn't escape. I needed proof. Not because I doubted anymore, but because I knew if I didn't have evidence, she'd twist the truth again and make me look insane. I started planning, quietly, carefully. The next day, I ordered a tiny voice recorder online, the kind journalists use. I told her I had a business trip coming up, just to buy myself some space. She pouted, saying, "You always leave when I need you most." I kissed her forehead and said, "I'll be back before you know it." When the recorder arrived, I hid it under the couch cushions in her apartment. I left it running during our arguments, our conversations, everything. It felt wrong at first, like I was betraying her. But then I remembered. She'd already done that to me. Within a week, I had hours of recordings. Most were normal, small talk, Netflix in the background. But then came one night when she called her friend laughing. "No, he still doesn't know. I told him I threw up this morning. He looked like he'd win an Oscar for concerned boyfriend." "You're terrible," her friend giggled. "Please, I'm just making sure he stays put. Once I get the ring, I'll figure out the rest." I sat there, listening in the dark, feeling every word carve a deeper hole inside me. That's when something in me flipped. The pain stopped being confusion and started turning into clarity. I didn't want to fight her anymore. I wanted to free myself, and the only way out was to let her expose herself, publicly, undeniably, and on her own stage. It didn't take long for Mia to notice my emotional distance. I stopped reacting to her outbursts. I stopped defending myself. I was polite, calm, and quiet, and that terrified her. Because control only works when the other person fights back. So she escalated. One evening, she called her mother while I was in the kitchen and started crying loud enough for me to hear. "He's changed, Mom. He's cold, distant. I think he doesn't even want this baby." I stood frozen, listening as her mother's voice bled through the speaker. "That's unacceptable, Mia. You need to tell his parents what kind of man he's becoming." The next day, the storm hit. My phone buzzed nonstop. Her mom, her dad, even my mother. Her father's voice on the phone was pure venom. "You better start treating my daughter with respect, son. She's carrying your child." And my mom, hesitant but disappointed, said, "Liam, if she's pregnant, you need to grow up and support her fully." I tried explaining. Tried saying I hadn't seen a single medical report. But words are powerless when the other side cries louder. Mia knew that. She cried on cue every time. For a few days, I actually started questioning my sanity. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe she really was overwhelmed and I was making it worse. But that night, I sat alone replaying one of my recordings, the same one where she laughed with her friend about keeping me trapped. And in that moment, every illusion shattered again. I realized she wasn't just lying to me anymore. She was rewriting the story for everyone else, turning me into the villain in a play she directed. So I made a decision. If she wanted to play it like theater, then fine. I'd let her fill the seats, gather the audience, and then I'd let the truth take the stage. I spent the next week pretending everything was fine, smiling when I wanted to scream, holding her hand when I wanted to pull away. Every lie she told became another prop in the play she didn't know was about to end. She thought she'd won. She'd bragged to her friends on speaker one night thinking I couldn't hear. "He's finally behaving. I told you he wouldn't risk losing me and the baby." Her voice had that smug, victorious tone that used to cut me in half. Now it just steeled me, so I started preparing. I organized every recording, every screenshot, every text. I titled the folder "For the Thompsons," her parents' last name, and uploaded everything to a drive. It wasn't just revenge. It was self-defense. Because if she ever tried to destroy me publicly, I'd have proof of who she really was. When I told her I wanted to host a family dinner, to bring everyone together again, her eyes lit up. "Really, you mean it?" she asked, like a kid hearing Santa was real. "Yeah," I said, keeping my tone steady. "I want our families to see how far we've come." She hugged me so tightly I could feel her heartbeat. It was almost sad, how she had no idea that this dinner wasn't a celebration. It was the beginning of her unraveling. The night before the dinner, I stayed up late, rehearsing every step. The folder, the phone, the recording I'd chosen, her voice, her words, her laughter about the fake pregnancy. As the clock hit midnight, I stared at my reflection and whispered, "Tomorrow, you get your freedom back." But part of me knew this wouldn't end clean. Truth never does. The night of the dinner, everything looked perfect on the surface. Candlelight, polished silverware, laughter that sounded almost genuine. Mia was glowing, not with motherhood, but with victory. She wore a pale pink dress and a diamond necklace her mother had given her for strength. I remember thinking, she has no idea what's coming. Both our families gathered around the long oak table. Her father poured wine, my mother complimented the meal, and Mia played the role flawlessly. Affectionate, radiant, untouchable. Halfway through the dinner, she stood up, resting her hand dramatically on her stomach. "I just want to thank everyone for supporting us," she said. "Liam's been amazing. I don't know what I'd do without him." Everyone applauded. My father clapped me on the shoulder, smiling. I forced one back. Then I excused myself quietly. "I left something in the car," I said, grabbing my phone from the counter before heading to the hallway. What no one knew was that my phone wasn't locked. It was already recording, and I'd placed it on the mantel near the dining table before stepping out. I waited in the driveway, heart pounding in my throat. Inside, the sound of forks and laughter faded. Then, through the cracked window, her voice played. Clear, unmistakable, recorded days earlier. "I'm not even pregnant, but he's dumb enough to stay. Once the ring's on my finger, I'll figure out how to dump him without looking bad." For a moment, there was silence. Then chaos. Her mother's sharp gasp, her father's furious, "Mia, what the hell is this?" My mom's whisper, "Oh my God." I didn't walk back in. I didn't have to. I got in my car, hands trembling, and drove off into the night while her world burned behind me. That was the moment the truth finally spoke louder than her lies. By the time I got home that night, my phone was blowing up. 20 missed calls, half a dozen voicemails, and a flood of texts from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer any of them. I just sat in the dark, watching the screen light up over and over like a dying firework. The first call I picked up was from her father. His voice, usually calm and polished, was shaking with fury. "Liam," she admitted it. Every word. "I don't even know who my daughter is anymore." I stayed quiet. He sighed heavily. "We're sorry, son. You didn't deserve this." Then he hung up. A few minutes later, Mia's name flashed on the screen. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. When I answered, all I heard was sobbing. "Liam, please. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was scared of losing you." "Scared?" I said flatly. "You built an entire lie." She started rambling, trying to twist it again. How I made her feel unloved, how she thought faking a pregnancy would make me stay. I listened in silence until she finally whispered, "Can we just talk? Please." I almost laughed, and not out of joy but exhaustion. "No, Mia, you've talked enough. I'm done listening." She begged, cried, cursed, then begged again. I ended the call mid-sentence. A few days later, her parents showed up at my apartment. They looked broken, defeated. Her mother handed me an envelope. Inside was the ultrasound photo, now crumpled and torn. "We had no idea," she said softly. "You did the right thing." As they left, I closed the door and just stood there, finally realizing I didn't need her apology. I didn't need their sympathy. The truth had already set me free. It's been 8 months since that night, and sometimes I still wake up expecting my phone to buzz with one of Mia's long, manipulative messages. But it never does anymore. The silence is its own kind of peace, heavy at first, then freeing. She tried reaching out a few more times after the dinner, mostly through mutual friends. I heard rumors that she moved away, that her parents cut her off financially, that she's trying to start over. I don't hate her. Not anymore. Hatred takes energy, and she's taken enough from me already. For a long time, I blamed myself. I replayed every argument, every ignored red flag, every moment I told myself to be patient. I thought maybe if I'd loved her better, she wouldn't have lied. But that's the cruel illusion of manipulation. It makes you think you're the reason they're broken. I deleted every message, every photo, but I kept the recordings. Not to hurt her again, but as a reminder that trust isn't blind faith. It's earned proof. Last week, I drove past the restaurant where I first met her. Same streetlights, same cracked sidewalk. I parked for a moment just to breathe. For the first time, I didn't feel bitterness. I felt gratitude. Not for what she did, but for what I survived. If there's one thing this whole mess taught me, it's that love doesn't mean saving someone who keeps drowning you to stay afloat. Sometimes, love means saving yourself first. As I started my car and pulled back onto the road, I glanced in the mirror. Not at the past, but at the space it left behind. Empty, quiet, free. And I realized something I should have known all along. I didn't lose her. I just finally stopped losing myself.